K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bryce Robbins, and welcome to Opinion Nation. It's great to be here for a second episode. I have a good one for you today. So get ready to give me your opinions and tweet me at OPNAT News. So to start, sadly, former baseball shortstop and Cubs shortstop, Hall of Famer Ernie Banks actually died yesterday at age 83. He will be very missed. Also, what will happen with Saudi Arabia? As many of us know, King Abdullah has died. He was the man who put them on the map. He died at age 90 and will now be preceded by a new king who's also age 80 at the time, right now. So I'll get back to you more in coming weeks about that, because that could be big. How will relations change? How will exchange between the two countries, the United States and Saudi Arabia, change? And is there even change to come? But now on to our cover story. Boko Haram. See, Boko Haram is a growing terrorist organization whose allies are... Ooh, I can hear my passing. Back to the story. No problem. Boko Haram, terrorist organization. So they're aligning themselves with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, and the United States current administration at least, and the Pentagon, have seemed to very much not pay attention to this terrorist organization taking place in Nigeria. They're also moving into Cameroon. And a recent report from CNN stated that the current leader, I'm going to butcher this one, but I think I can get it, Abubakar Shaku, I think. I'm really not good on saying that one, who currently has a bounty of $7 million on his head, has overseen the killing of 16,000 people since 2009. This is a man who is destroying the area. He's the same man who oversaw, over the summer, the kidnapping of 200 Nigerian girls from school. So let's take a minute. Let's break down, what does Boko Haram mean? There's a little debate over it. We know that the word haram means basically a sin, okay? And the word Boko is where it is kind of debated, whether it means Western education or education in general. But if we look at their logo, it's a book with an Islamic flag sticking through the spine of the book and guns coming out the other sides of the book. So let's ask ourselves, these are not people who are fostering education the way Nigeria is trying to. Now, Goodluck Jonathan stated in 2011 that that Africa, and Nigeria specifically, does not want aid anymore. They need trade. Africa's growth is set to reach 4.2%. That was in 2014, and it's continued to grow at another 5% this year. So this is an economy that is growing, and the way I see it is that Africa is going to be the next China, where we're going to be moving industry there, shipping costs will be less, and you'll have a supply of labor there. We will build factories there, and that's what's going, I believe that is the way that our globalized economy is moving. But we see that this terrorist organization that is capitalizing primarily in Nigeria and Cameroon is basically harming that growth. You can't set up a stable country when you have a terrorist organization to the north killing thousands of people, harming people, kidnapping schoolgirls. Now, but of course, here begs the question, does the United States get involved? That is the question I want to hear from you from, but in my opinion, it is our duty to get involved, because we seem to get involved. We have to look at it like this. Do we get involved when it's only in our national security interest, or when we can look into the future, see that, the African continent, Nigeria specifically, who has the 10th largest oil fields, are investments in the future. And when these countries become stable, they will be economically beneficial to us as a nation in the United States. So, here is the question. Is it our job to get involved, to send our military into Nigeria, or to send military aid? Now remember, when the schoolgirls were kidnapped, the United States, along with France and Britain, sent drone help to search for the schoolgirls. Now they did not use military drones to combat the terrorists. Now the current administration, Goodluck Jonathan's administration, is in a bit of a heat. Now they have been accused of possible war crimes and corruption, but that hasn't stopped the United States before. We've worked with other nations, whether or not they've been corrupt or have been charged with war crimes. So the real question is, when does the United States get involved? When Boko Haram nears oil fields? When Boko Haram starts infringing on U.S. interests? Or should we just get involved now and cut the head of the snake before it gets too big? Okay, so now I'm going to move into the next topic, the Romney 3.0. Mitt Romney has seemed to change over his existence in politics. We went from the original Mitt Romney, who was the pro-choice Mitt Romney, the real Massachusetts man. I guess that's why he was elected governor there. And then we saw election Mitt Romney, when he was running back in 2012 against Obama. Really moved conservative. Real conservative move, became pro-life. He made fun of climate change. He did all, if we could roll one of those clips, Rick, that would be great.
But I do want to mention three principles that I think should form part of the foundation of what we take to the American people.
Stuck up for the liberal
First,
principles.
we have to make the world safer. Second, we have to make sure and provide opportunity for all Americans, regardless of the neighborhood they live in. And finally, we have to lift people out of poverty.
While Rick gets that one set up, I'll just keep telling you. Basically, a guy, he, hasn't been fond of the liberal principles of Elizabeth Warren, but he's now sound a lot more liberal. In one statement, he was talking about combating climate change. At the RNC dinner, he was talking about, combating the poor. That there is a huge separation in this country about income inequality. That it is at the biggest point in its history. That we have a huge poverty deficit in this country. And it didn't sound a lot like the Mitt Romney that I was used to. This sounded like Mitt Romney who was back before. Oh, it did. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even hear it playing. Okay. Well, if we could move into that second clip now, that'd be great too. All right, yeah, no problem. If it's playing now, I can't hear it. Okay, no problem.
By the way, I'm in this race because I care about Americans. I'm not concerned about the very poor. We have a safety net there. If it needs repair, I'll fix it.
I'll just basically say what I was going to say anyways. Essentially, we see that Mitt Romney, he's kind of clever right here. I know he's losing endorsements like crazy. He has a Koch problem, as one report said. The Koch brothers won't be endorsing him. They'll be doing anything they can to make sure he does not become the Republican nominee. But you see, what Mitt Romney's doing is kind of clever. He sees how he lost the last election. He lost it to Obama supporters, people who were in the middle. He lost it to those who were on the cusp of voting for him, but it just couldn't quite cut it. He's trying to appeal to voters like me. Now, this is kind of clever. He's talking about climate change. He's saying, I'm one of these Republicans who would like to believe the climate skeptics, but it just seems the science isn't there. He talked about coal emissions, and this wasn't the Mitt Romney that I knew running in 2012. But here it begs the question, is he serious? Because he said he was running to the right of Jeb Bush. Now, to the right of Jeb Bush would not be the things that he is stating today. He's talking, originally in 2012, as the clip might have played, I wasn't ready to hear it, he stated that, I really don't care about the poor because there are safety nets to keep them afloat, and if they're not working, I'll fix them. Now, that doesn't really sound like a liberal Mitt Romney, the one who cares about the poor. It doesn't really sound like the one that we're hearing today, who is talking about the travesty, the horror of income inequality. Something's different here. But now here begs the question, I want you to ask yourself this question. Would you vote for the new Mitt Romney? Is this actually change? With this new Mitt Romney, are we going to see change? And, I wonder if this is just a political tactic because he sees that the nation, many people will say, this is a center-right nation. But as we could see perhaps by the 2 successful elections of President Obama, we are moving toward a younger left generation, a more center-left generation. The millennials have been proven statistically that they are voting to the left. So here is the question. Are Mitt Romney's tactics of speaking about climate change, of speaking about income inequality, are these tactics to get center voters pushed to the Republican Party? And is he serious about what he's saying? Or is this just good politics, good tactics? Because you got to understand, for someone like me, I am a huge advocate for, climate reform. I believe that is the biggest problem facing this nation, and I'm not alone. So does NASA, so does NOAA, and so does the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy released an official statement in 2012 stating that climate change was the greatest problem facing this nation's security. So we're seeing that billions of dollars are now being spent in renovating, retrofitting this nation's energy economy. We see that $16.4 billion were saved in 2014 in new energy efficiency mandates. So is Mitt Romney changing sides because of actual change in belief? Or is he just changing sides because he knows that when he made that joke at the presidential debates in 2012, that he immediately turned off a voter like me? Immediately, I heard him talk about, rising flood levels as a joke, and immediately I was turned off. I think he sees also, in addition to climate change, as what he was talking about at that dinner, that, people want to see change in income inequality. People are listening to Elizabeth Warren, begging her to run for president, because now she's talking pharmaceuticals. She would just, institute all those laws to prohibit Wall Street growth and, the mishandling of Wall Street, Dodd-Frank we saw. She was a large supporter of that. And we have to wonder, is Mitt Romney trying to appeal to liberals? And I keep saying it, but I'm not sure if I'm quite convinced. Because he wants to run to the right of Jeb, but yet he's still going with this tactic of talking about climate change and income inequality. That is truly interesting. And I can't wait to hear back, or I can't wait to hear in the future about, how is he going to lay out a campaign if he runs one? Because he's talking like a politician now. He definitely is moving himself into a position where he will be announcing his run for presidency. And I think, he's Romney 3.0. I guess third time could be a charm. But, if he runs a campaign that's as sloppy as the last one, I don't know if we would expect him to win. Right now, if we want to, divert, I kind of didn't want to talk about, 2016 elections. We're still a year behind. But, I hope it's not a Hillary takes the nominee for the Democrats. I don't think she stands for the good principles that the Liberal Party stands for. And I don't want to really see a Mitt Romney run, at least the Mitt Romney that I knew. But if he's serious about change here, then he might actually be doing his job and swaying me to, vote for him. But this is interesting. All right. So now we're going to move on to I'm going to kind of move us into a topic that will be coming up after the break. We're going to be talking about net neutrality, internet security, Sony hacks, and how Obama is taking care of this issue. So basically what we're seeing is this issue of net neutrality. The president has stated that he is in favor of this fair, free internet, but what we are yet to see is how is he going to take action to prevent this. He laid out a clear plan, which I'll be talking about later, but how effective is this? Now, on the show, I definitely want to hear your opinions. So tweet me again, I'm going to keep saying it throughout the show, at OPNAT News on Twitter. Look us up on Facebook at Opinion Nation News. But back to what I was saying, is that, when the internet was created, it was created to be fair and free, an access place for the entire world, and for the people of the United States that our right to this information will not be infringed on. I know my Second Amendment nuts will love that word, infringed upon. But, this is very interesting. So let's just think about this. Basically, with net neutrality, I just want to lay it out before we go into the main topic about it after the break. Basically, we're talking about companies who want to infringe on our right to equal internet access. They're stating that, we're going to make a fast highway, and we are going to make a kind of a lane for everybody else. So before we go into the main segment, I want you to, figure out your opinions. Do you think that there should be an internet fast highway for those who pay for it? If you can afford it, should you get better access to the internet? Or is this kind of like, the big problem of income inequality? If you can afford it, you can have it, and it's just growing a gap between the rich and the poor. We will obviously see, in low-income areas, in low-income schools, who can't afford it, that they will have slower access to internet. But aren't these the same people who need it the most, who need access to the internet, who need access to these ideas to enrich them? So, is the president right in his quest to free the internet? But when we come back, because I'll be going off in a couple seconds, is what he's trying to do, is it a wise move? So, I'm just waiting to make sure we're going into break. But final thoughts before we go into our next topic. Should President Obama move more swiftly with executive action, or basically, is he making a wrong move? Is this just capitalism? Is this the way that capitalism needs to move forward? Okay. Okay, no problem. All right. Let's just roll into break. All right, thank you. We'll be right back. Okay, were the clips playing? I was very confused. I can't hear them at all. Sorry. Should I tell my guest to call in now? Okay. Yeah, the reason I cut it early is because when I was budgeting my time with the clips and everything, I figured that would carry me into the 30-minute mark. But then I didn't hear them, so I kind of got a little thrown off there. And my fault.
This is Misty, owner of Wax It Studio in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I'm here to talk to you about a skincare product called Theramedics. Theramedics has a wonderful line of products from anti-aging to hyperpigmentations all the way to acne. In fact, everyone at some point in our life is affected by acne. Acne can cause a great deal of embarrassment and anxiety, and in order to prevent and help other people, I have tapped into this wonderful product called Theramedics. Visit my website at www.prettyskindeep.com. Again, that's www.prettyskindeep.com.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
The feeling most people get when they hear a Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
Steady.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. Ricky Robinson, host of America Off the Rails, will tackle the important issues facing America today as he tries to keep America from coming off the track. Get ready to hear the truth every Monday through Friday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, and on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern and 11 Central here on K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network.
Welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Again, I'm Bryce Robbins, and this is Opinion Nation. I'm here with Ryan Steffinger. Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
All right, so today, as I just promised, I'm going to be talking in our main segment about net neutrality, internet security, and we might even touch on the Sony hacks and how the United States can better prepare itself for the future of cyber warfare and generally internet topics like that. So, if possible, let's see if that clip will play. Rick, please play the clip about Obama speaking. Thank you.
Ever since the internet was created, it's been organized around basic principles of openness, fairness, and freedom.
I'm not. Are you?
There are no
Ryan?
gatekeepers deciding which sites you get to access. There are no toll roads on the information superhighway.
Yeah, sorry.
This set of principles.
In his statement, he's saying, he intends that the internet was built and should stay built as a free access for people all over the world and throughout this country. That we should all have equal rights and equal access to the internet, no matter how much money we have. So, Ryan, let me hear, what do you think about having free access for everybody that's equal for everybody, regardless of how much you pay?
Right. Well, I think something that's, worth noting from the start is that he didn't exactly say free as in, not paying, but expanding access to the entire country, especially to areas where it might be more expensive to try to implement broadband there. But his net neutrality promise is a free and open internet, and that's what he said in the State of the Union. But he didn't explicitly mention his position on it, which is that he would like to reclassify the internet as a Title II utility. And, of course, that's something that the FCC is in charge of, but he was sort of putting his
well, let's expand on the Title II utility, just for viewers who might not know what that is. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Sure. So something very important that classifying the internet as a Title II utility would do is place certain regulations on it that not congressional regulations, not executive regulations, but regulations from the FCC that will prevent things such as what some of the major providers are trying to do in terms of creating, quote, fast lanes, which are really not fast lanes. Instead, they're slow lanes where some people can browse the internet at certain speeds and you have to pay up to browse at a faster speed.
So let's talk about that. Do you think that will increase, in a sense, this idea of growing income inequality, that, if you have more, you'll get more, and if you have less, you're not going to get as much on the internet? Do you think that would be a valid statement for the listeners to, kind of get this idea of, if I pay more, I'll get faster. If I don't pay more, I'm just going to kind of get slower?
Yeah, and it's very important from the side of the businesses, the small businesses who are trying to, like small tech startups especially, who are trying to break through and have a big sort of product come out. If they don't pay up, if they don't pay Comcast or Verizon and have this faster access for everyone who's trying to get to their site, it has been proven that even those few milliseconds of extra loading time are going to turn people off and turn people away from your site. If someone like NBC, which is owned by Comcast, can make it so that going to the NBC video streamer online is much faster than going to Netflix, then that is a problem. And yeah, I think it will sort of multiply the entire problem in the country right now of massive income inequality and massive, corporate control of major parts of our economy and government.
Now, we just heard that the president was speaking. I believe it was at the Pentagon. He was speaking about national security and how we need to better ourselves, essentially for future of the cyber warfare. Right? Did you hear that, by any chance?
Yeah, I heard about it. And he's said a lot of things recently on cybersecurity, especially after this Sony hack. But he also has done some things in the past few years. Interestingly, there's a bill that came around multiple times called CISPA, the Cybersecurity and Information Sharing and Protection Act, I believe.
Okay, yeah,
and
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and what that one of the main things that did was sort of expand access between businesses and the government to share private information to, quote, combat cyber terrorists. But the bill was very poorly written both times and was eventually shelved because of the outcry from all of the internet rights groups. And Obama had threatened to veto this multiple times before. He had always said, I will veto this if it gets to my desk. But now he's throwing a bunch of old cybersecurity proposals back into the ring that are just as unsatisfying as that one.
Right.
So yeah.
No, I'm sorry. You can finish the thought.
Well, I was just going to say that so there's this sort of dichotomy of him saying, we want a free and open internet, and of course he's saying that when it comes to net neutrality, but that free and open internet phrase really does not apply to any of his other policy decisions on the internet.
All right, so now, you being a very smart person in regards to this, using the internet and whatnot, what do you think is the best move to keep our internet free and open for the people, as Obama is promising?
Well, I do think the best move in terms of net neutrality is, of course, to classify it as a Title II utility. Ted Cruz said something along the lines of, oh, this is Obamacare for the internet. That's just factually incorrect.
Yeah, I know. He didn't even read what net neutrality was about. He just...
No.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think that is the way to go for that. But in terms of cybersecurity, that's a much harder subject to sort of come to an agreement about. There does need to be some level of, cybersecurity protection that we put in place, but I feel like a lot of that, especially because a lot of the cybersecurity talk is being sparked by the entire Sony incident, like, we shouldn't be taking this as an opportunity to add back doors to tons of different systems or exploit more of the rights of people who are using the internet. We should be taking this as an opportunity to maybe legislate on, corporate responsibility.
When you say exploit rights, do you mean NSA surveillance? What are you talking about there?
Yeah, like things like the NSA surveillance, and yeah, some of the proposals they're floating around are going to collect more information on us. It's almost as if, people completely forget about all of the problems we've had in the past few years with the NSA revelations.
All right, so last question about net neutrality, and then I want to jump ships to the NSA. Do you think that if, let's just say, Ted Cruz kind of got his way, and they were successful in implementing a fast lane and a slow lane, do you think that would also be an infringement on our First Amendment's freedom to speech? Because it'll, in a sense, be saying if you can pay more, you can have access to more speech?
In my opinion, it would, but interestingly, I think that we've found that the Supreme Court on multiple occasions has found that having more money with your speech is in fact exactly, what the First Amendment is about. If money is free speech, then I think the Supreme Court would maybe find that no, fast lanes are fine. If you pay more to have more access, maybe they would rule that was completely legal. I don't.
Your reference, Citizens United has given a smile to my face. All right, so let's jump ship to NSA surveillance. So, in this growing world, as post 9/11 world, there is more and more access to the internet. More computers are going online every single day. Whether you're in Africa, the Middle East, Asia. We're seeing hacking attempts coming to the United States. We're seeing a growing flow of terrorist communications over the internet. Do you think that the United States has a responsibility, or even has the right, to conduct a surveillance overseas, domestically, for kind of like the Patriot Act, the idea of it's for the common good of the people?
Right. Well, I think in terms of, I'll start on foreign. I think there is, I do sort of form a distinction between foreign surveillance and domestic surveillance, and I think the rules should be sort of different on that. In terms of foreign surveillance, I think, of course, everything has to be justified and everything needs to have a warrant, but I do think in terms of foreign surveillance, we do have more of a right to collect data on those we do genuinely believe are trying to harm the country. And clear, like something that needs to be very clear, neither domestically nor on foreign soil should this be blanket collection, which is what we do in a lot of cases. I'm forgetting which country it was, but one of the major nations in the Middle East, the NSA had a program set up that literally just collected every single communication online in the entire country.
But why are you saying that is, not the right thing to do? If there is so much action coming out of this region, if we have so much people, so much military, we have so many, military operations focused in this region, why should we not be patrolling everything? Why is this blanket a bad idea?
I think that every search needs to have a specific warrant. And that's really the main thing. I think that applies domestically. I think that applies also in foreign countries. And of course, we're going to have more requests to surveil in other countries, hopefully. And I think that maybe that is justified. But I think those requests should be a warrant coming from a surveillance court, and it should be very specifically defined, this group of people in this location, this amount of time, instead of just saying, well, think about, all the hundreds of thousands of people who are doing absolutely no harm and are having their information collected by these programs. Like, sure, there may be more prevalence of people who are trying to harm us in an unstable region such as the Middle East.
Do you think this idea of a blanket, right? So there's all this information passing through the blanket. This blanket is filtering out information that is valuable, and it's just going to let, common searches go through. They're not looking for someone who's looking up, pornography. They're not going to shame you for that. They don't care. They're looking for someone who's trying to contact or, plot a terrorist act. So do you think that, when all this is taken into account, the post 9/11 world that we're living in, that regardless of whether it's domestic or foreign, that the kind of right idea to go in would be to this large filter, as you described it, blanket? I mean, I understand you want a warrant, but don't you feel that a warrant could, slow the process of actually taking action against these terrorists?
Well, I think one thing that needs to be made clear is that blanket surveillance does not mean you're like putting a blanket on and it's filtering things through. Blanket surveillance means you are taking an entire large group of people for a large amount of time and just taking everything. It's like throwing a giant net and then just pulling everything. It's not like a filter in place. Blanket surveillance is collect everything, which is the NSA's mission statement. It's on their, I believe it's on their seal. And I do genuinely think that idea of blanket surveillance, although you could say it's efficient, and you could say maybe it would...
Well, are we targeting efficiency here? Because we got to be efficient at targeting, terrorists and communications.
We do, but we can also be efficient while doing it in a framework that is legal, especially in the United States, where blanket surveillance is ridiculous.
So then, to kind of cut away from foreign surveillance, I just have one last question about foreign, then we'll move back towards domestic.
Sure.
Should we be upholding the same rights domestically that we do on foreign soil? Because, does our Constitution, should it be applied? Should our legislation be applied when we're, on a war on terror? Does this war on terror, kind of give us the right to, take advantage of what we do here?
Especially not within the country, no, I don't think so. I think that domestically, the distinction we make between domestic and foreign, I think there is one, and I don't think we should necessarily be applying all of our constitutional rights to people who live in foreign nations. I think we do have a little bit more leeway when we're looking at foreign surveillance. And do I think that's necessarily fair? Do I like it? No, but I think that legally we do have a bit more leeway on foreign countries. But then in terms of what's going on in the United States, we have a constitution, we have a lot of laws set up, and blanket surveillance domestically is just unconstitutional. I mean, that's that.
Let's move into domestic, domestic surveillance. With, the whole Edward Snowden releasing, kind of being the whistleblower on this one. Well, how do you think the United States can effectively find, operate counter-terrorist movements, scanning the internet, while also protecting the rights of individuals? Because, to get a warrant on someone, you need to have suspicion on them. So to get suspicion on them, we got to be, scanning them. And to start scanning them, we kind of have to see what they're searching. So how can we effectively uphold our Constitution, uphold each individual person in this country's rights, while also effectively fighting terrorism?
Well, I think some of it comes down to the kind of stuff that I talked about on foreign soil, where we need to have surveillance courts set up that aren't just giving a blank stamp to every request that comes in. We need surveillance courts that actually look at the requests that are coming in with scrutiny, and we need requests that are very specific in terms of who you're doing surveillance on. Like, basically what the NSA has been about is mass surveillance, collect everything, and then sort through it later. And I don't think that's the proper thing to do at all. I think it should be, if you have some sort of suspicion, you submit that surveillance request to the surveillance court.
But how do you get that suspicion without scanning everybody, without taking that net and scooping up everybody?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure if I myself have a factual answer I can just give you off the bat.
Yeah,
there are, of course, ways in which it is done, because, there have been, times where blanket surveillance is not how, the different parts of the government try to target people, and instead they have suspicions and they go in. How those suspicions are reached, hopefully there is a way that is not blanket surveillance, but I couldn't tell you right now exactly what other methods they use.
So let's jump ships again. Let's talk about hacking, right? Sony's hacking, China's hacking. To me, I see, let's take China, for example. I know that they targeted to a specific building that is the, Chinese Republic's military is operating it. And, we're well aware that, all these countries are hacking into our information. Specifically, China's been the most dominant one. To me, it seems like, what's the difference between them hacking our information? In the past couple episodes I referenced, China hacked into the Pentagon's files and essentially recreated our F-35, the new jets, the military jets. So what is the difference between them hacking us and their military marching into our Pentagon, taking out the filing cabinets and getting on a ship back to China and just looking at them? What is the difference? Is this an act of war? I mean, what should we be looking at these hacks? How should we be classifying them?
Well, I don't think they're an act of war. I think that maybe they are an act of aggression. They certainly shouldn't be taken lightly, especially when it's something like a state group to another state group. So in that case, China, their state group to the United States itself. I think that does need to be taken very seriously. The security that is put on, data centers and whatnot in the U.S. definitely needs to be almost perfect, and we need to have experts who spend their time protecting those groups within the United States who are government groups from these kind of attacks.
Now, why are we getting hacked? Why do we seem to be so bad? It seems like every other day I hear, this Fortune 500 company got hacked, Target's credit card numbers have been taken. Is it because that the government is actually not overseeing it and it's private companies? Is that why? Or is it because we're just really bad at it?
Well, I think that in terms of companies, and this applies to Sony as well, I think the government might have a role in advising what the best ways are to protect your security against foreign threats. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hacking going on, but that's just because there's so many people and it's so easy to do. You don't need a team of experts to go hack a company. But the reason why I think everyone's being hacked so frequently is that the security measures that are in place at a lot of these places are really bad. And there's just very common sense security stuff that it seems that a lot of companies neglect to apply, and then when they come get hacked, they complain, and then it turns into a national conversation about how the U.S. needs to apply more laws on cybersecurity and how we need to go in and protect everyone, and why wasn't the United States protecting Sony? It's like, the security that Sony had in place on their files was negligible from what I read.
Mm-hmm. I read that too.
Yeah, I mean, there were all the this one I distinctly remember, all of the important passwords from many people at the company, many, different, I guess, archives that they had or products. The passwords were all unencrypted in a text file, like literally passwords.txt. And it was just a list of passwords. Like, if you're Sony, you should not be doing that. It's as simple as that. I think the government needs to like share common sense ways for companies to protect their privacy, and if major companies want to get in touch with some of our security experts who work for the United States, then I think that's very reasonable. Like a good amount of interaction where, the experts who work for our government are helping out companies implement security solutions, I think that would be reasonable. But the fact that this has now turned into a national conversation about why wasn't the U.S. directly protecting Sony, it's because Sony is a private company, and I find this very funny that criticism is very often coming from conservatives and conservative groups who draw such a distinction between private companies and the government, and suddenly when a private company has bad security and gets hacked into, now it's the government's responsibility to be protecting that. Whereas, if the government wants to tax that corporation, that just can't happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point there. Now, let's talk a little bit more, though, about this whole idea of how the United States is getting hacked. Were you familiar with the Islamic State affiliates hacking into the Pentagon, their Twitter? I mean, it's not too hard to hack into someone's Twitter if you know what you're doing. But, how should we be responding to this? I mean, I know it's not really a serious threat, they hacked into a Twitter account, but what is this saying about our protection on a national level? How seriously we are taking, security for our government in regard to the web?
Well,
your thoughts?
I think, when it comes to something like Twitter, ultimately as the United States, we're not in control of the security on Twitter. The people who are in control of that would be Twitter, the company. And I don't feel that, the Islamic groups getting into our Twitter and changing the pictures and changing the cover photos and tweeting things, I don't think that's a big deal. People are going to do that. People are going to troll around on the internet. We have Americans who I'm sure are more than happy to go do the same thing to foreign nations. They might be doing it more in a comedic sense, but it's almost hard to tell. Like I just really don't take these so seriously. They seem almost more comedic than they do actually problematic. I mean, sure, they get into the Twitter account for like a few hours. What is that going to do?
Yeah. All right, well, to move into final thoughts here, kind of to sum it up, last question for you. What do you think the United States here, let's phrase it like this. Are you okay with Anonymous, terrorist organization, supporting United States effort to combat Islamic extremists, how they said that they were going to be taking down or hacking websites that are affiliated with such groups? What do you think? Do you think we should be, it's kind of like the enemy, my enemy is my friend? What kind of situation is this?
I think it's sort of the kind of situation where, at least in my opinion, it works sort of like this little political game I play online where you can like take stances on an issue or you can just ignore the issue. Mm-hmm. I would say, at least in my opinion, just sort of ignore it. The U.S. should not be, condoning Anonymous, but I don't think they should be taking steps to, defeat them or try to get many of them arrested unless something is done that is blatantly illegal against our own people.
Well, I mean, we have seen that in the past. We have seen they've hacked into our websites, and it's not just a Twitter account, it's a website. I mean, federal property.
Sure. And, just this past week, a journalist, Barrett Brown, who some people considered the face of Anonymous, was sentenced to, I think, 5 years for posting a link to, or for sharing a link to some hacked content. He was given 5 years for sharing a link. And I do really think Anonymous is a touchy subject, because to one level, when they do things that are very illegal within the U.S., hacking into our own sites and systems, there are laws there, and we do have to do our best to find those people and prosecute them. But there's certainly a level of very, very intense, like overly done prosecution, I think, on the United States' part in terms of anyone who does anything quote-unquote wrong, whether it's legitimately something that's harmful or whether it's really not. The U.S. really loves to over-sentence people for crimes that are internet and technology related. Just to really quickly bring up the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the CFAA, which is the main law that's there right now to prosecute people who quote-unquote hack or do something wrong. The bill is horrible. Technically, when you break the terms of service, you are breaking the law and you can be prosecuted for that. And that law, that very poorly written law, was what enabled some of the U.S. prosecutors to, when it was the case of Aaron Swartz, who was the guy who worked a lot on RSS. Right. There's that documentary out about him, which if anyone who's listening wants to watch it, it's a very good documentary about Aaron Swartz. He committed suicide because he felt incredibly pressured by the amount of just the sheer level of prosecution that was being thrown against him. The prosecutors were clearly trying to make an example of him, give him a lot of time so that people know you can't do these things. But the thing that a lot of people forget is that in the case of, wow, I just totally lost my thought. No.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show. I hope to have you back. It's been a great interview. So thank you very much, Ryan.
You're welcome.
It's good to hear from you. All right. So to wrap up our show, this is a very interesting, interview with Ryan we just had. So basically, we're talking about internet access, the United States security in internet. It's a big topic to, discuss here. And we really have to beg the question here is, how is the United States, how do we handle this growth in other countries having access to internet? And how do we better protect ourselves? How do our companies better protect themselves? Because, when, Target gets hacked and 3 million credit card numbers get leaked, that's a problem because we could see overseas phishing. We could see all these problems arise because of, a private company's mistake. So we have to look at, how the United States better increases that. That was a wonderful interview with Ryan. I mean, I don't really know if I agreed with him on a lot of the things. I know personally, I think that the NSA is, in this post 9/11 world, that they do have a place in our society where we should be scanning everybody, making sure that, because I don't care if they see what I look up, because I know I'm not doing anything wrong. But, if that means they have to look at what I'm looking up to stop, some terrorist from blowing up a port, by all means, do it. It's kind of like the airport. I submit that they can check me, that they can search my stuff, because I know that, it's kind of for the betterment, the safety of the entire community. To move into, final thoughts here, I'd just like to say that, this was definitely a good show. Next week I'll be talking more about, spending in this country. Is the spending good? Should we spend more? How can we curtail our spending if need be? I'll be talking about space, our future in space, and perhaps maybe we'll talk about 2016 and what the future holds in this country. For now, Rick, if you want to take us out, I'm Bryce Robbins. It's been a great show, and I'm glad, and I will hope to see you all listening next Saturday. Same time, same place. Be here. Thank you very much. Rick, if you could take us out.
All right, guys, this is Rick Robinson. I'm the programming director here at K98Talk.com. I'll be right back with you guys here in just a few minutes with the America Off the Rails radio show. I'm not sure if we're going to do the full 2 hours today. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I did, due to technical issues, have to skip last night, so I will be back with you here in just a few minutes. Also, for those of you joining on TuneIn, we had so many people trying to pull it up all at the same time that it took the server a little while to catch up. So you missed about the first 10 minutes. I will have the podcast link available here in just a little bit through SoundCloud and a few other places that we push it out, and I'll make sure to send Bryce one so he can start disseminating it. We have had a lot of folks listening today, so thanks to all of you who have tuned in. I'll be right back with you here in just a little bit with the America Off the Rails show, and then, of course, later tonight you'll be able to hear the voices of Global Freedom Radio, guys. And, of course, if you missed it, there is an interview that I've done with them as well as they've done with me on both their show and my show on our podcast page, so you're more than welcome to go back and check that out as well. Again, I just want to take a second to say, for those of you who don't know, Bryce is a lot younger than he may sound on the radio, and I don't say that as a bad thing. I think it's great when somebody that's the age of Bryce actually starts showing interest in politics and wants to try to see about finding a way to make sure other folks are involved as well. And this is only his second show, and for those of you who caught the first one, I do want to just give him a second to say hats off. Great job. You've come a long way in these first two shows, and I do look forward to continuing to see how you grow and continue to improve with us. And as a reminder, for those of you who might have missed Finding Common Ground, he'll actually be joining us for at least the next few weeks as the Liberal chair for that show. Dave's work schedule has caused a conflict, so he won't be able to appear with us. However, he did mention that he will probably at least be trying to phone in for at least the first half hour of the show, because he'll be getting to work before it ever opens, and he can hang out with us for just a little bit. But just want to take a moment to say, great job, Bryce. Really enjoyed the interview. Not sure I agreed with everything that was said in either case, but that's actually what causes people to think. So again, I just want to say, so far I'm really impressed with what you've done. I think you'll be a great addition here as you continue to grow, and I just wanted to take a moment to give you an attaboy, because you did really good today.
Thank you very much, Rick. Nation, please, give your opinions, and don't forget to tweet me, and I'll be glad to see you all listening next week. Thank you so much.
All right, one last thing, because I promised I was going to do it this week, but unfortunately, due to meetings and several other things, I haven't been able to. And this show basically just cemented it for me. This Opinion Nation show will now be a featured show on the SparkRadioNetwork.com. We're going to have a link to his page with his bio, his picture. We'll also have his Twitter feed tied right to that website. So if at any time you want to tweet him and you want to be able to do it straight from the website while we're working on some chat issues here on the K98 Talk website, you can go straight to that page, pull up the show while it's live, and actually tweet with him there. You can even go back in, because it will show it as a podcast. Anytime it's not live, it'll show his most recent show, and you can tweet any questions that you might have directly from that page. Just sorry, Bryce, I know I told you I was going to get that done this week, but I've had a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, folks, I think I have monopolized enough of this young man's airtime, and we are going to have to shut things down. I'll be back with you here in just a little bit with America Off the Rails. And again, one last time, great show, Bryce.
Thank you very much. See you all next Saturday.